Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and I'm here with a very special guest, Colleen Thomas. And I am very excited for this episode because I think one of the things that I love talking about is how the being is as important as the doing in our lives and in our businesses. And one of the ways that we settle into the being is by kind of upending the way we live our lives and looking at where can we bring more presence, more self-awareness, and even more practices like ceremonies or rituals that can drop us into those places kind of more easily and more often and with more depth. And Colleen happens to be an expert on that. So hang tight for just a sec. We'll be right back.
It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur.
All right. Colleen Thomas is a ritual artist who helps people make sense of life through ceremony. She produces Shame Pinata, which is a podcast focusing on rites of passage. And she also produces Daily Magic for Peace, which is a podcast sending positive energy to Ukraine. So Colleen totally gets how the energy of intention and our presence of mind can impact our reality. And I'm very excited to have you on the show. Welcome to the show, Colleen.
Thank you. It's so fun to be with you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Being someone who broadcasts this message of, rites of passage, of ceremony, of sending positive energy, to be someone who does that, you must have had your own journey of finding how those things are important and how that works. So what's your journey been like to doing what you do now?
It's a really good question. I feel like it's one of those things in life that kind of grabbed me. I didn't necessarily go looking for it. But at one point, it just became really clear to me, okay, spirituality is really important to me. And actually, the way that came to me was specifically through the blood mysteries. I had this period of time between college and then grad school where I didn't know what I was doing. I was living in Denver and I wasn't focusing on ritual. I was actually working in domestic violence and I had a women's group. And one day I just was like, wow, I never had a menarche ritual when I had my first blood. And I really wanted to have that. And I wanted to have other, mentoring people with me in that. So, but then I was like, but wait, everybody probably didn't get to do something that they wanted to do. So I turned it into like a little workshop and I interviewed each woman in the group. And I said, is there something that, happened in your life that was good or bad or significant or nobody got it? It needed a little more love. It needed a little more time. And everybody had something. Mine was kind of more standard, but everybody had something very unique to what she needed. It was all women. And so then I worked with them to go over what are the questions. And then we got together after, a month or so of planning. And it was like a 4-part ritual. We each had our section of the ritual. And so for my section, I wanted them to tell me their coming of age stories while we beaded red bracelets. And so we sat together and we did that. And then at the end, they gave me this gorgeous moonstone that I had found. It had found me in a store and welcomed me to the circle of women, which is just what the 12-year-old in me, however many years earlier didn't get. And I was really wanting that. So, and then something about that transition into menarche and learning about rites of passage and specifically around the blood mysteries, just kind of was like, whoop, just called me. And then I ended up in grad school focusing on ritual and I'm still there.
Yeah, I love that. So for those people, I feel like a lot of people listening, we've got kind of a spiritually attuned audience on this show, but how would you, I don't even want to say define, but how would you describe ritual and the value that it has in our lives?
Well, there's a lot of definitions and different kinds of meaning people can have when they use the word ritual. There's the daily practice, which is a certain kind of ritual. I tend to use it to mean that it's taking a task. It's like a physical activity. I'm a very tactile person, so it's like I could drink a cup of coffee every day, and that might be a morning ritual, and that could be something that I feel like is a ritual. But I might also feel like when I drink that coffee, it reminds me of maybe I buy my grandmother's favorite kind of coffee, and it reminds me of when I was little and I was in her kitchen, and I could, maybe I felt safe in her kitchen with her brewing the coffee in the morning, and it was like a really nice, and maybe she's passed on and I want to remember her, and just kind of like having grandma in my life with me. If I drink her coffee every morning, that's
Mm,
kind of a blended
yeah.
example. Yeah.
Like a deeper intentional aspect to,
Intention. Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the regular ritual.
Yeah, and intention is what makes it ritual. Otherwise, people would argue that otherwise it's just a routine or a habit. I think we can do things in a routine way, habitual way with intention. It doesn't have to be like to be with grandma. It could be, to really take really good care of myself. And so I'm going to drink this specific kind of healthy coffee or whatever it is, or healthy
Yeah.
tea. But so that's one extreme, like just something small that we do. And then the other extreme is something really planned out. It takes a lot of time that maybe involves community. Like you might think of a wedding or a funeral, but I'm really big on empowering people and saying, wow, still that question, like, what was that thing that didn't get honored for you? Like if you lost your job and it was just like, okay, whatever, I'm happy to be out of that place, but maybe there's something that you want to just kind of let go of, or maybe if like for me, it's kind of like if there's a little bit of like like a little feeling in there that just kind of needs a little something, maybe not, but maybe that could be a place where ritual could be useful to have, bring some intention to that, and maybe bring some community if there is community that might be interested or supportive to witness that transition.
Yeah. The witnessing can be a really powerful part of it too. Because we can do I want to call it witchy, but we can do the intentional magic in our own like time. But it actually is beneficial for us to have other people witness it and hold the space for it. And I think it magnifies the magic of it. It's also beneficial for other people to witness someone else being that intentional about something in their lives, being that like present with, hey, I'm going through this thing that's changing and I want to honor it in this way. Or, hey, I'm present to that or that like something crunchy in my life. And I want to like take a moment to just really sit with that and actively see if I can change the energy to something that isn't so crunchy anymore, which is really awesome. And I love that the idea, like you said, that was your 12-year-old youth that still had that like lack of ritual around that thing or that lack of intentional transition about that thing. It's never too late to hold space for yourself in some way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So can you give us a couple other examples of like maybe people you've worked with or maybe things like that where it was like, okay, here's a moment that is still kind of tapping me on the shoulder or not going away or not feeling resolved or finished or complete or, put together in a way that you've helped guide them or a way that people chose to navigate through that?
Sure. I'll share a couple examples from my own life just to kind of keep it sort of on a personal level. And I guess, I have this podcast called Shame Pinata, and the reason it's got this weird name, Shame Pinata, is because I left a job that I had been at for 14 years. And when I left, I felt extremely depleted and felt full of shame. And it was sort of because in that time of being in that position, it started to become a thing where the universe was trying to get me to leave and I didn't want to leave. And so then it just got more and more uncomfortable. And I felt a lot of shame that I hadn't just bounced out of there the minute I realized, oh, you know what, I need to move on. And I stayed, and then I was compromising myself. And then, just kind of like I wasn't living up to who I want to be. And so when I left, it was like, wow, I feel awful. And it would be easy to just kind of be like, okay, whatever, that's done. I'm out of there. I'm on to my next thing. Cause I was really looking for my next thing. But it took some time and some reflection. And in that process, I realized I actually got exposed to a term called shame exposure, which is like a clinical term of like, when I would maybe share with you as a close friend, the stuff that's really not feeling okay to me. And it's like, it needs to be a safe place, right? So I decided, I want to do that. Like, I think I'm going to gather my people and I'm going to go through what it is. And I had all these shirts that I had been given at my job that said like the name of the school on it. So I decided to write on those shirts with like a ballpoint pen, like letters to myself. I'm really upset. Like each shirt had a theme. I'm really upset about this. And then there's this. And then there's, oh my God, there's this. Like, and I wrote out like journaling on these shirts. And so then I put them all on for the ritual. And of course, I had just gone into menopause, and of course, I had a hot flash once I got them all on, which was like miserable, wearing it's like sweatshirts and stuff. And then I did this whole process of like, presencing. Actually, what I did was I read each one out loud before I put it on, and it was like really worked really well, because it was this physicalization of putting on this shame, which was horrible. And yet I had these people who were very loving and who were like just with me. When I felt ready, the ritual involved getting out of the clothes, cutting them off. I actually cut each one and like ripped it open to all these layers. And I had prepared a piñata with all the negative self-talk, a bunch of bad words, like negative words all over the piñata. And I had a session after, I think it was before I took off the shirts. I was like standing there, buried in all of the shame, with a stick, going, I don't even want to hit the piñata. Like, I don't have any, it's not in me. I just give up. I give up. I'm going to just, go to the center of the earth with this shame. But then I just waited and waited and waited. Everybody waited. And I started hearing this little voice saying no. And I was like, what was that? No. And I just was like, okay, maybe that'll get louder. Maybe that will fill me. And it did. It took a while, but it like filled me until it went into my arms. And then I was hitting the piñata, like really convinced, like, no, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be buried in this. And it was like totally physicalized. I got the piñata smashed open, then I cut the shirts and ripped them off, and everybody was like, duh, it was like so amazing to have my community with me, right? And then there was some cleansing I did to like release that energy, and that's what I wanted to do first, because the reason I really wanted my friends with me was because I wanted to brainstorm, what is my right workplace? What kind of job am I really meant for? Day job am I really meant for? Like where's my strength? And I couldn't have that conversation until I had presence to shame, until everybody had, honored it. And so we did that. And then it was like, I took a shower, came back, and we sat and we visioned. And then like 2 jobs came open that I got offered like within like a couple of weeks, because wow. I think just the energy had shifted. And I always hear people tell the stories and go, yeah, that's nice for you. But it actually happened. Like it actually, I was stuck. I was super stuck. And I had to find myself again. And it wasn't just like journal entry. Oh, find myself. I needed to go through a whole big process of that.
And that's the beauty of it. I mean, I feel like it sounds hokey of like, oh yeah, and then you got 2 job offers of like perfect things like a week later. But no, that's how the magic fucking works. Excuse my French. That when you actually move the energy, when you actually clear the space, when you actually ask for, hey, what's next? And like really look at that and get curious, something shows up. It could be like just a small window opening. It could be just a small conversation that feels like an opportunity down the road somewhere. Or it could be like, here's a job falling in your lap. But something shifts when we do this kind of work. And that's why it's worth doing. What I think is really freaking cool is how creative and how like relevant the actions are that you come up with for the task that like symbolizes the shift. Because I think not everybody's going to have, and I love that you call it a ritual artist, because it is, it's a craft, it's an artistry to say, okay, here's the kind of thing we want to make happen. This is the kind of energy shift or the energy opening or the witnessing or the receiving that we want to like harness. And like, what would be a physical way that we could enact it? And that's like, it's almost like theatrical, but also like art. And to do that and to embody the shift that you're talking about having, that physicality, I think, is just a way to make it all more real faster. It's a lot different than just journaling about something. You're journaling about it on a shirt that you put on, feel the weight of, and then rip off of you. Like, what? That's totally different.
Totally.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And I just feel like the potential for using that in one's life is like there's infinite opportunities for that. Whether it was a childhood thing that you need to recover, whether it's like, hey, my life's been going in this direction. I'm willing to start looking at what the patterns are. And what do I need to do to break that pattern? That pattern of who I be in my relationship with my mom, or of who I be in my relationship with the opposite sex, or with my partner, or with my body, or, just how I'm receiving the energy of other people in my life. Why do I always feel guilty when I, talk to someone or miss a text message, or I'm 5 minutes late and go to that place? What would it take to change that place for me?
Mhm.
whatever that is.
What I'm hearing, even in those examples, is this sort of this urgency, this need, this readiness to do that. And I
Yeah.
feel like I've done a lot of ritual where I should do that ritual. So I do it and it kind of like, but when I come at something like this example I gave you, when I'm like ready to do it, I need to do it.
Yeah.
That's when it will be most potent. And it's okay to do it other ways too. But like, that's what I try to do when I work with people is like, okay, you're feeling the, and like, where does that go? And like, I was just speaking the other night about how we tend to think that if I'm planning a ritual for myself, I'm going to have it in a month, that hour of the ritual is going to be the thing. And I'm going to buy stuff and I'm going to do the thing, get people to come to the thing. But like, actually what I've learned in working with people is that from the moment I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm ready to do this thing. From that moment, almost until through, but really until we start the ritual, that's when like it starts right then. Like when the decision is made, everything that's in my dreams, my journaling, the people I meet, like everything that happens in my life as I'm gathering things, as I'm maybe journaling about how do I feel about this thing, or like I've identified the thing that wants to move, like maybe one of those things you said, but like I have no idea how that wants to move. And there's this process of listening to it, finding it. Where does it move, like physically in the body? Where does it want to move? It's like finding the impulse and then seeing where it wants to go and letting it go. And that for me is where all the ideas come in. Like, okay, so like if you were feeling shame and you wanted to move it, and I said, well, okay, you could you could do the journaling sure thing, and you were like, no. So okay, fine. Okay, so then like, where do you feel it? And so playing around until you find how that shame for you wants to move, and then just going with it and letting it grow. It's a very organic process, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. One piece at a time. And I like that idea of setting a date and that the work starts already. I've had the experience where I like sign up for a transformational workshop kind of experience. And it's like, as soon as you decide, you put your name in the hat, you're like, okay, I'm going. It starts in a month. It's like, oh no, the class started the moment you chose it. And
Totally.
like your life is showing up to be like faced in that way through that
Yeah.
filter of what you know you're about to learn already because you put your energetic hat in the ring for that. And so that's something to sort of be aware of too. It's like when you choose to do work like this, it will be the work that you asked it to be. And your opportunities to face it and transform it and walk through it are going to start showing up when you choose that. Yeah.
Totally.
And the beauty on the other side is so worth it, even though it's scary and it can be uncomfortable and hard.
And that's when it's nice to have allies, friends, a community, even if it's like an online community that feels safe, just like being not alone, because those of us who do this kind of work, a lot of people don't get it. It's not their thing. They might make fun of it, blah, 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 all this stuff. But we know what it is, but then we're doing it and we're, like, it's scary. It's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's good to cultivate that support.
Yeah. Can you give any ideas or insights for people who maybe don't feel like the people in their lives can hold that kind of space, or how to maybe broach that topic with a friend who maybe you haven't been that vulnerable with in the past? Like, what are some ways to create that kind of community? Because I know there have been times in my life where I did not have people in my life like that. I'm really glad that I do now. But there were many years of my life where I just didn't have people I could lean on in that way, or that I was willing to.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say one of the things that I say is just trust your gut in terms of if you're going to have a ritual and you want to invite people, the tendency is to, oh, I should invite that person. Oh, I should invite that person. But really think and know that whoever you bring in for such an intentional moment you're really letting them in. And so you want to make sure and check on all different kind of levels in with yourself about, is this person really, gonna hold space like forever, which is a lot, right? For like the rest of their life, are they never gonna say anything about it? Like if you ask, please don't speak of this ceremony outside the space to contain the energy of it, or that's the intention, are they going to honor that? And because you're not going to know 100% if they're really going to honor that. But like, if you have a good feeling that they will, and you might be in a reciprocal place for them, then that's probably a person to consider inviting. And somebody who's like, you're like, no, they're definitely not going to get it. Then I would say definitely don't invite that person.
Yeah.
As to how to create community, I think it's kind of gut level, like getting involved with different groups.
Getting involved with different groups is a great place to start too. I think when I started going to workshops and attending meetups and like branching out to people I don't know who were doing intentional work in some way. Like I went to meetups about shamanic journeying or like tarot magic or like all these different kinds of meetup groups. Cause I was like, I know there's more people like me who are not in my, group of friends from college who like to drink a lot, that there's got to be more people who want to talk about this kind of magical stuff. So I'm just going to go to places I think they'd be and make friends at those places.
Yeah.
And that's a way to branch out and sort of expand your circle of influence, looking at meetups about, anything intentional or authentic relating or nonviolent communication or whatever you're into, whatever kind of spiritual flavors you're into, go where those people are already hanging out.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to build community too.
And you can also work with that on a magical level. You can put that intention out and you can set up any kind of parameter you want about what this, like any safety you want, around that, like the people you want to draw to you. And when you said that, I got to hit that. I went through a process years ago where I was having a new moon intention every new moon, but it was about a certain thing in my life that I wanted to cultivate. It was about cultivating a partner, finding that person, bringing them into my life. And what I learned, and it was a long time, it was like a year or two of every new moon setting an intention and figuring out where am I in this process. And it was a lot of peeling away old stuff. So each new moon I would be like, okay, I would do a meditation and like kind of a shamanic journey on my own. And I would say, oh, hey, that's where I am. Like I'd see myself on the inner and I'm, under a bunch of rocks. Okay, then maybe this moon will be about figuring out what's going to happen with the rocks. And so just kind of setting that intention and then letting everything shift. And then on the next new moon, checking in and being like, okay, now I'm not under the rocks. This is not a real example. I'm not under the rocks, but I'm about to drown in a pool of water now. Like, that's not where I want to be either. So like, and kind of letting that process unfold, it actually sort of was a really beautiful journey for me. It took a long time and it wasn't like snap your fingers and have the person you want at all, but it kind of cleansed me. And it was like me watching it happen.
And being an active like player in the unfolding and revealing process. Instead of just, why isn't this happening? Well, I don't know, go about my daily life and not think about it. Instead of like, who do I want to be that receives the relationship I actually want to be in? And what does it take to become that and choose to be it now?
Exactly.
Yeah. And being in that inquiry is, beautiful, powerful, and like takes courage to look at it and to be willing to sit with it and see what comes up.
And there was a period where synchronistic things started happening in my life, and it was really felt like, woo, the ball's rolling. Like I needed to just kind of cleanse off enough to get it going in me, and then it started happening, and it was pretty fun and pretty neat.
Yeah. I think there is that elation when you see the magic you're doing working too, that like, wow, this stuff is real. My thoughts and my intentions do create my reality. And having the experience of just proving that to yourself is really satisfying.
Totally.
It's enlivening too. Yeah. Not to mention the things that show up because of it that you're asking for. That's also fun. Yeah. So cool. So I want to, let people know, first off, tell us, why they should go listen to your podcast. You have 2 podcasts that people should go check out.
Thank you. So the first podcast, Shame Pinata, was the only podcast I was planning on doing. And it's just a bunch of examples of people doing rites of passage. A few of my own are in there and other people. There's a kind of a good diversity now of what people are sharing. There was stories around loss. Tristy Taylor decided not to have a baby, and then she had an unbaby shower, which was her grieving, the not actually having the baby and going through that, letting go of the choice to try was her challenge, and her journey she walked through. Tria Chang is an amazing writer, and she had some great conversations with me about the intentionality of weddings and how they don't have to be a certain way. They can be any way that feels good to you as one of the people in the couple or the more than couple that gets together. And Betty Ray is a wonderful ritualist, and she's done several episodes with me, just asking a lot of the questions that we talked about today. And she had a wonderful self-commitment ritual that she shared, and I had a wonderful self-commitment ritual that I shared in the series in a different episode. And so there's a lot of diversity. And let me think, one other thing that's unusual that you might not think of, Alicia Connor, who's a wonderful nutritionist, she spoke about her own journey of losing her vision. She was diagnosed with degenerative eye disease, and she took her last drive across the country. And she didn't realize at the time it was her last drive, but that was when her vision was still strong. But she like, part of her knew she was going to need to let go of this. So there's so many changes in our lives that we may or may not think of as rites of passage, but these are all people who actually did think of them that way. A big part of my work with people is just to say, okay, find a thing that wants to move, and then, figure out how it wants to move, and I'll be right here with you while you do that. And so these are all examples. All of the Shame Pinata episodes are full of just tons of examples.
That's awesome. Yeah, people should definitely go check that out. And what's the best place to get a hold of you if somebody wants to maybe have some facilitation with the artistry of the rituals that they're thinking about creating in their lives?
You can contact me through the website, which is shamepinata.com.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any other platforms people need to follow you on?
I'm on Instagram and a little bit on Facebook, not very much, and Twitter, but I would say most of the activities on Instagram.
And that's Shame Pinata or shame.pinata?
Shame Pinata on all of them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, everybody go open your Instagram and follow Shame Pinata and check that out. And once again, I'm just really grateful for the magic that you be and the way that you bring that intentionality into your work and into your own life, and that you showcase that so other people can get a glimpse of it and get inspired to do that. And you've shared a lot of wisdom on this episode already, but I always like to ask, are there any last words of wisdom that you want to leave people with?
Thank you for asking that. I guess I would just say, just trust yourself, which sounds a little bit generic, but like, just, like, if you're feeling a call to manifest or move anything or honor anything or make a change in any way, as you look around, and I guess this kind of goes to my wedding soapbox, which is that, like, it doesn't have to be the way you see it around you. You definitely, with weddings, you definitely do not have to get swallowed up by the wedding industry. You do not have to get swallowed up by the wedding industry. You can do something really unique and really creative and really you, really you as an individual, really you as a couple, really you as more than a couple, whoever's involved in it. You can do something that is completely you.
Awesome. I love that. And yeah, I mean, to get to facilitate people to do that kind of magic, I feel like doing that as your business has got to be one of the coolest things you could have created as an income stream or as like a passion project. It's a business that really is so beautiful, and I imagine really fun to get to do. So well done. I think that's inspiring for anyone out there who's listening, who's like, oh gosh, I wish I could just do what I'm really interested in as a business. You can. I dare you. It's probably fun. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Colleen. And thank you everyone out there for listening. This was a really fun episode. I feel recharged by it. So you're brilliant. And I feel grateful to have you on my show.
I'm so grateful to be on your show.
Yeah. And everybody out there, whatever happens, keep asking big questions and taking bold action, because you are here for a reason. We'll see you next week.